The chamber was never meant to host hope. It drifted in permanent orbit around a dead star, a celestial corpse, whose light had long since lost warmth, reduced to a dull gray glow that barely reached the vast Senate Hall of the Galactic Empire. The star no longer burned. It merely remembered burning, like an old wound that refused to heal. The walls of the chamber were forged from alloys, stripped from conquered worlds. Entire civilizations had been melted down to construct this place. Their remnants were shaped into polished black crystal panels, each etched with name species, cultures, languages that no longer had mouths to speak them. Every inscription was deliberate. Every name was a warning. Gravity pressed slightly heavier than comfort allowed. The air composition was subtly hostile, forcing visiting delegates to adjust their breathing without understanding why. Even sound behaved strangely. Here voices echoed just a moment too long, as if the room itself wanted to remember fear. Chamber existed for one purpose: to break civilizations. The Galactic Empire had declared war here for over 10,000 years. No species had ever left this room unchanged. Most did not leave at all. At the center, Deus stood, the High Executor of the Empire. He was ancient, towering, armored in ceremonial plating that symbolized 1,000 victorious campaigns. His blade of office hovered beside him, suspended in a localized gravity field, humming with restrained destruction. When he spoke, his voice carried more than authority. It carried history. By decree of the Eternal Empire, he announced, the species known as humanity is hereby declared a hostile civilization. The word spread outward like a sentence already carried out. Silence. Followed. The silence of peace. The silence of prey. Then, laughter. Soft, measured, human sound so utterly wrong that it felt like a crack in the foundations of the chamber itself. Every head turned. At the far end of the hall, seated alone at a narrow diplomatic table, the human envoy smiled faintly and unfolded a paper object. Newspaper. Ambassador Elias Moore looked painfully ordinary. No power armor guarded his body. No honor guards flanked his position. No neural crown broadcast his authority. He wore a simple gray suit creased slightly at the shoulders, the cuffs worn thin in a way that suggested years of travel and neglect. He looked less like a representative of a rising interstellar power, and more like a man who had missed his morning coffee. Archivist Lume studied him carefully. She had served as the Empire's neutral historian for over 2 centuries, documenting first contact encounters and declarations of war. She had seen the same emotional arc repeat itself endlessly. Shock, denial, fear, defiance, collapse. Sometimes defiance lasted longer, sometimes terror arrived instantly, but it always came. Except now Moore scanned the newspaper with mild interest, as if the extinction of his species were an inconvenience rather than a catastrophe. High Executor Vraxtal stepped forward, his talons clicking sharply against the obsidian floor. Human, he said, his voice sharpened with deliberate menace. Do you find this declaration amusing? Moore didn't look up. I wouldn't say amusing, he replied calmly, but it's certainly not the worst news I've read this week. A ripple of shock moved through the chamber. Lume felt something tighten beneath her. Carapace. This wasn't arrogance. This was familiarity. Tal's mandibles tightened. With a sharp gesture, he activated the chamber's display systems. The lights dimmed. The air vibrated. Massive holograms erupted into existence. Vast armadas stretching across entire star systems. Planetary shields shattering under concentrated fire. Stars dimming as weapons bent physics into obedience. This armada, Vraxtal proclaimed, ended the Zel Dominion in 3 rotations. A planet folded inward, collapsing into a singularity of light. This force erased the Kesh spiral. Another system vanished, its suns extinguished like candles. We have annihilated civilizations that believed themselves eternal. He leaned forward, towering over the human envoy. You will not be remembered. Moore nodded politely. Very thorough presentation, he said. Good pacing. He turned a page of the newspaper. The soft rustle of paper echoed, louder than the holograms. I passed a coastal city on my way here. Moore continued calmly. Flooded. Millions displaced. Yesterday, a financial collapse erased entire lifetimes of work. Last week, border conflict. Thousands dead. No victor. No memorial. He tapped the page lightly. This is page 3. The chamber grew still. Lume realized something terrifying. The human wasn't dismissing the Empire. He was placing it on a list. You speak of catastrophe, Lume said carefully, breaking protocol, as though it were routine. Moore finally looked at her. His eyes were not mocking. They were heavy with memory. Because it is, he said softly. He folded the newspaper slightly, as though respecting its weight. Humans were born under extinction threats. We nearly wiped ourselves out before we ever left our cradle. Nuclear wars, engineered plagues, climate collapse, ideological fanaticism. A faint, humorless smile touched his lips. We argued about it, filmed movies about it, made jokes because the alternative was losing our minds. He leaned back. War isn't a special occasion for us. It's background noise. Vraxtal snarled. You mistake indifference for strength. Moore shook his head. No, he replied evenly. You mistake fear for authority. The Empire followed doctrine. Within the hour, fleets surged across the frontier, perfect formations, synchronized energy signatures, overwhelming firepower, designed to crush resistance before it could organize. Imperial commanders expected chaos. They found silence. Human space did not erupt in panic. No emergency broadcasts, no mass evacuations, no desperate pleas. Civilian traffic rerouted calmly. Mining stations adjusted. Communication networks shifted frequencies without centralized commands. One admiral laughed. They had disorganized. But Lume watched the data streams and felt dread bloomed. It wasn't disorganization. It was decentralization. Far from the front lines, human systems began to wake. Not military headquarters. Networks. Civilian freighters received encrypted updates. Industrial fabricators retooled overnight. Decommissioned platforms powered up under revised parameters. No speeches. No flags. No rallying cries. Just people doing what they had practiced for generations. Moore watched the feeds. Quietly, they always expect drums, he thought. We learned to move without sound. The Empire's opening barrage struck empty space. Human fleets were never where predictions placed them. Imperial weapons targeted command centers already abandoned. Supply routes collapsed not from attack, but from denial strategies that left Armadas starving in the void. Human ships didn't pursue victory. They applied pressure. Every engagement felt wrong to Imperial tech. No decisive battles. No glorious confrontations. Just erosion. Vraxtal stared at the reports as confidence curdled into disbelief. How are they doing this? He demanded. Lume answered quietly. They are not fighting to win today, she said. They are fighting to make tomorrow unavoidable. Human broadcasts began appearing across Imperial channels. Not propaganda. News. Weather updates. Market reports. Entertainment feeds. Life continued. One clip showed a human soldier tightening armor straps, laughing softly with a comrade. If this goes bad, he said, tell my mom I finally followed instructions. The feed cut. Vraxtal felt something inside him fracture. They don't fear us, he whispered. Moore nodded. No, he said. We're experienced. Imperial commanders slowly understood the truth. Humanity wasn't mobilizing, they were functioning. War had not disrupted their civilization. It had merely revealed how adaptable it already was. The Empire requested negotiations. Quietly, desperately. Senate reconvened, stripped of ceremony. No holograms, no threats. Vraxtal stood smaller now. What do you want? He asked. Moore considered the question. Peace, he said. Distance and memory. Vraxtal swallowed. You laughed, he said. When we declared war. Moore met his gaze. Because terror only works once, he replied, and we survived the first time, long before we met you. The treaty was signed. The Empire withdrew. Archivist Lume recorded the moment. History bent not through fire, but through understanding. That's Moore turned to leave. Vraxtal hesitated. What will humanity do now? He asked. Moore picked up the newspaper. Same thing we always do, he said quietly. He glanced at the front page. Check tomorrow's headlines. He walked away. Behind him, the Dead Star burned just a little colder. The human envoy Mara Klein stepped into the Galactic Conclave. Her pace calm, unhurried. Delegates froze. Nothing unusual until she reached into her coat and produced a newspaper. The room went silent. Thousands of eyes fell on the crisped pages, which bore a date. Tomorrow. Oracle General Threx's 6 eyes narrowed. The ink still smelled faintly of human press, as if it had just been printed. Read it aloud, Threx demanded. Mara did, her voice steady, emotionless. Empire fleet engages human defense, net near Kepler Verge. Casualties exceed projections. Imperial flagship disabled. A gasp echoed. Threx's mind raced. That engagement wouldn't occur for another 48 hours. And yet here it was, written in print. It hasn't happened, he growled. No, Mara said softly. It will unless you choose otherwise. The Galactic Empire thrives on certainty. Probability engines, man-sized predictive intelligences, simulate billions of futures every second. Wars are not fought, they are solved. Casualties calculated. Alliances weighed. Outcomes guaranteed. Threx, architect of these engines, has never failed. Every fleet, every strategy, every rebellion follows the calculated script. Humans, by contrast, refuse predictive AI. They forbid it. And yet, Mara's newspaper shows tomorrow's battle with unerring precision. She does not manipulate time. She does not cheat physics. She simply understands patterns, history, and human adaptability. Threx feels his mind strain. The engines cannot account for this. This is human unpredictability, weaponized. Far from the front lines, journalist Jonah Reyes sits before blinking consoles. He writes contingencies, articles conditioned on possible Imperial decisions. If they attack Kepler Verge, if they escalate, if they retreat, each article is precise, conditional, never meant for immediate distribution, never meant to become reality. Yet, somehow, they align with Mara's reports. Every headline she reads has roots in Jonah's writing, or rather, in humanity's preparation to react to all possible outcomes. Jonah doesn't fully understand it, but he feels the weight. His words might reshape the galaxy. You are cheating time, Threx accuses, his voice tight. Mara shakes her head. No, we prepare, but we do not predict. Every headline you see depends on your choices. The probability engines flare with trillions of simulated futures. None align. Threx's stomach tightens. Humans are not bound by time. They are waiting for us to choose wrong. Free will is why this works. Mara says, almost softly. The delegates shift uneasily. The Emperor's advisors whisper. This is not a threat they can model. Not a strategy they can predict. It is incomprehensible. The Empire strikes first. Pride, arrogance, the need to disprove Mara's claims. They launch fleets toward the Kepler Verge. Human defenses activate at exactly the wrong place, to look disorganized to Imperial senses but perfectly aligned to inflict maximum disruption. The probability engine falters. Losses exceed projections. Imperial admirals glance at one another, disbelief etched into faces. Threx feels a terror unfamiliar to him. This is not a war being fought. This is a war being scripted by human preparation. The newspaper updates quietly, on Mara's table, each headline shifting like living ink. Every choice Imperial commanders make locks the future closer to the story the humans have already written. The Empire refuses to listen. Imperial admirals launch another offensive not out of necessity, but to prove Mara wrong. Pride blinds them. Probability engines, strained beyond their limits, attempt recalculation. But every action tightens the noose. Mara watches silently. Her newspaper now carries headlines reflecting the Empire's choices. Every failed maneuver pre-written. Every miscalculation predicted by human preparation, not prophecy. Imperial fleets suffer casualties. Retreat ordered to late. Threx's spines rise. He feels a rare, primal fear and acknowledgement that the future isn't just unknowable, it is chosen for you if you insist on the wrong path. On Earth, Jonah Reyes reviews feeds from Imperial worlds. His conditional articles once thought safe. Hypothetical exercises now broadcast across Imperial channels. The populace reads the headlines before any events happen. Citizens revolt preemptively, believing the news is truth. Because in Mara's system, it is all truth once human preparation reacts to Imperial decisions. Jonah's hands shake. He realizes he is both observer and instrument of fate. Humanity does not need to control the future, they need only be ready for it. Threx stands alone in his command center. Probability engines sputter. Systems fail to reconcile human adaptability. Every possible future collapses into one certainty. The Empire is doomed if it continues to follow pride. He slams claws against a console. We can still change it. Mara approaches calmly. Then choose differently. Threx recoils. That is the choice he fears most. To admit error is to live in shame. Yet every scenario now makes failure inevitable if pride persists. The Empire's inner worlds fragment. Allies abandon the fleet. Systems refuse orders. Internal unrest spreads like wildfire, not from bombs, not from war. From information, from the newspaper, from understanding that their own decisions are already written as disaster. Threx watches Imperial admirals break under pressure. Citizens refuse compliance. Fleets stop moving. Probability engines shut down in disgrace. Mara observes quietly. Humanity has weaponized foresight, but not by predicting the future, by forcing the Empire to choose it for themselves. Mara produces one last newspaper. She places it on the table. The headline is simple, almost understated. Empire dissolves after choosing pride over survival. The chamber is silent. Threx collapses to his knees, 6 eyes wide. Is it irreversible? Mara's gaze softens. It is always reversible. You just need to choose differently. Pride, once abandoned, could have changed everything. Threx looks at the headline again. He knows it's too late. The Empire's ego has already locked the outcome. The galaxy reels not from destruction, but from collapse. Systems, once united under Imperial rule, now claim independence. Fleets sit idle. Economies unravel. Faith in the engines dies. The humans did not fight with fleets, or bombs, or weapons. They fought with preparation, patience, and understanding. Jonah publishes one last article. Not propaganda, not prediction. Just a record of what happens when pride blinds a civilization to its own choices. The future is never unknown. It only waits for us to make mistakes. Mara watches the stars from her return shuttle. Jonah stands beside her. Did we do the right thing? He asks. We gave them every chance not to become the story. Mara replies. They chose the headline. In a galaxy obsessed with controlling the future, humans never needed to see tomorrow. They only needed to prepare for every choice, and wait for others to make the wrong one. Ink on paper, a few simple headlines, and the understanding of human resilience became the galaxy's most lethal weapon. The newspaper folds quietly. Tomorrow still waits, but humanity already owns it. The Galactic Senate expected fear. The chamber, a cathedral of terror, designed to intimidate entire civilizations, was filled with silence. Instead, they heard laughter. Thomas Hale, human envoy, stood perfectly still. The chamber's high ceilings swallowed his chuckle, yet it echoed in every corner. It was not hysteria, not nervousness, not mockery of them. It was something else, a small, dry laugh. Empress Shakora's 6 eyes narrowed. She had always believed laughter was weakness. Hale unfolded a small holopad, showing a political cartoon caricature, mocking humanity itself. The senators froze. Even the high-ranking warlords shifted in discomfort. Hale smiled faintly. You see, we've survived worse. This sets the tone. Humans are terrifyingly calm, capable of humor even in the face of intimidation. A perfect HFY hook. Show humans' cultural trait. Laughter is psychological armor. Introduce Lieutenant Anya Volkov, Hale's second-in-command. Establish human fleet as quiet, deadly force. The galaxy feared humanity for its unpredictability. Most assumed humor meant surrender. A veteran of more conflicts than anyone in the Senate could imagine, understood the true weapon humans wielded, their capacity to laugh at destruction, absurdity, and even themselves. Lieutenant Anya Volkov, his second-in-command, oversaw humanity's deadliest fleet, silently orbiting the outer rim. To humans, war was routine, not terrifying, not sacred. Humor was the armor that allowed them to survive what no one else could endure. Plagues, civil collapses, world wars, near extinction. The Empire misread this laughter as Navit Hale's gaze swept the chamber. You expect fear, but what you see is calm. That is because humans have learned to joke at what others can't survive. Imperial senators whispered, madness. They mock death itself. Hale's calm, understated demeanor communicates both confidence and terrifying competence, giving viewers suspense and curiosity. Show cultural misunderstanding, emphasizes HFY theme. Empire assumes laughter equals weakness, but it's strategic and psychological. Empress Shaka leaned forward, tentacles curling. You laugh, yet your fleets are deadly. How do you reconcile this? Hale's eyes gleamed faintly. You misunderstand. We don't laugh at you. We laugh at what keeps most species awake at night. The Empire had ritualized war for centuries. Every action was solemn, every strike ceremonious, every loss mourned with grandeur. Humans laughed. It was horrifying. To laugh while knowing death. To joke while sending fleets into battle. The Senate whispered, madness. They mocked death itself. Hale folded the holopad, his grin subtle but chilling. No, we mock only the fear of death. That's the only thing we cannot control. Everything else is preparation. Reveal human tactical advantage. Laughter does not weaken. It strengthens psychological resilience. Combine humor with deadly efficiency in fleet operations. Anya Volkov transmitted fleet updates. Tactical maneuvers were precise, brutal, and delivered with subtle irony. Ships fired on enemy formations, while broadcasting recorded stand-up routines over encrypted channels. The first engagement at Velos Pass was a disaster for the Empire. But not because humans were violent. They controlled chaos. Hale's voice transmitted over calm conversational. You see, we have jokes about failing fleets. It keeps us sane. It keeps us alive. Imperial officers couldn't understand. Laughter carrying over their channels felt mocking yet terrifyingly effective. Even minor fleet adjustments were accompanied by wry commentary. Humor had become part of battle doctrine. Expand HFY theme. Humor equals armor. Each joke hides trauma, adds emotional depth. Back in the Senate, Mara observed quietly. Humans wear humor like armor, but every joke hides a scar. The holopad showed an exaggerated cartoon. A human struggling against impossible odds. Smiling. Thumbs up to the camera. You survived worse, Hale explained privately to a shocked ambassador, and we remember it all. Laughing doesn't erase it. It prepares you to endure more. Empress Shakore's face darkened. For the first time, she wondered if laughter itself could be lethal. Show suspenseful, cinematic battle. Combine HFY combat plus psychological warfare plus humor. The Empire struck at the outer rim, expecting humans to react predictably. Volkov's fleet did not panic. Ships darted in patterns, seemingly chaotic at first glance, yet perfectly orchestrated. The human fleet transmitted a recorded comedy routine stand-up about bureaucracy, war, and absurd politics. Imperial commanders froze. They couldn't comprehend simultaneous levity and deadly precision. Fleet losses 37%. Imperial casualties, catastrophic through it all. Human laughter continued dry, understated, horrifyingly calm. Imperial morale collapsed. Soldiers whispered, confused and terrified. The Empire realizes humor is strategic, not distraction. Dark HFY, payoff. Empress Shakor watched live feeds. Her armada was being reduced by forces she underestimated. Humor was training. Survival through laughter was part of a culture forged in repeated near-extinctions. Each joke, cartoon, and broadcast was psychological armor. Imperial tacticians despair as human fleets dismantle. Strategy with brutal efficiency, all while broadcasting sardonic commentary. The Empire's arrogance, pride, and misunderstanding became their undoing. Expand psychological tension. Humans turn trauma into tactical advantage. Empire officers experienced existential confusion. In every Imperial command center, officers laughed nervously. Not at humans they couldn't, but their minds struggled to process what they saw. The enemy laughing while striking deadly blows. Through humor as deliberate war converting trauma into tactical advantage. Minor setbacks were accompanied by sardonic commentary. Imperial morale collapsed quietly, insidiously. Climactic suspense. Humans reveal full strategy. Humor equals psychological weapon. Empire is defeated, without full annihilation. Hale transmitted one final message to the Senate. Do you understand now? Laughter is not weakness. It is preparation. We joke because we have seen annihilation, and we have survived it. Fleet executed final maneuver. Imperial formations shattered. Emperor Shako realized too late. Humor was never distraction. But, weapon of survival. Hale remained calm. Expression neutral. The Empire misjudged humanity. Jonah Reyes, historian embedded with the fleet, recorded final data. Laughter equals adaptation. Humor equals psychological. Conditioning cartoons and jokes equals tactical deception. Imperial officers realized too late. Humans survive by embracing absurdity, laughing at trauma, acting with precision simultaneously. The Empire retreated. Fleets were broken. Morale shattered. Hell, Volkov. Mara observed remnants of Imperial formations. We didn't need to annihilate them, Hell said. We just needed them to see what we survived through. Human crew quietly joked among themselves, a subtle camaraderie, quiet but terrifying power. Imperial diplomats would recount this day for decades. Not as a military defeat, but as a psychological enigma. Hale returned to Senate chambers for final briefing. We do not underestimate fear. We embrace it, laugh at it, and move on. That is how a species endures beyond expectation. Empress Shakor sat silently, realizing that to laugh at devastation while striking deadly blows was more dangerous than the mightiest fleet. Hale's final words echoed in empty corridors. You may conquer many, but you cannot conquer the joke only humans understand, and the joke is survival. Camera pans over human fleet orbiting shattered Imperial Armada, close-ups of soldiers sharing subtle smiles, exchanging jokes, Imperial commanders retreating, horrified but alive political cartoons floating holographically in human command centers fade out with humans laughing softly. Terrifying power. The Empire arrived expecting defiance. They expected resistance, fury, fear. Instead, they were met with calm, subtle laughter. Ambassador Nolan Pierce, human envoy, stood before the Galactic Senate. The chamber, designed to intimidate entire species, seemed suddenly fragile. Holobonas stretched high overhead, artificial air currents flickering over alien dignitaries clad in ceremonial armor. Pierce smiled faintly, unfolding a small holopad. Holographic contracts, treaties, and interstellar accords shimmered in the chamber's light. Each projected line contained clauses, dozens, hundreds, thousands carefully crafted, legally binding across multiple star systems. Chancellor HFY Sci's eyes widened. You are laughing at this. Pierce's voice was calm, precise. Yes, because the war you just declared violates 3 interstellar trade agreements, 27 clauses, and 1 unratified treaty that binds your fleets across dozens of systems. The chamber fell silent. 1,000 alien whispers stopped mid-air. Not a single senator dared move. Pierce tapped a holopad. Legal documents bloomed in the air like a constellation of glowing blue text, cascading into hundreds of interconnected grids. Each line represented obligations, sanctions, automatic defense clauses, and contingency measures spanning every human-controlled system. You assumed your fleets and weapons were enough to intimidate us, Pierce said, voice calm but sharp. Instead, you've triggered a galaxy-wide legal collapse. You've weaponized your own pride against yourself. HFY's mandibles clicked. Words cannot stop fleets, cannot command compliance. You cannot be serious. Pierce's smile widened. They can, and they will. The scene sets a strong cerebral hook, establishing tension immediately. The audience realizes this battle is not fought with guns but with intelligence, law, and human foresight. The Empire had underestimated humanity. They expected numbers, firepower, ritualized war. They did not anticipate humans weaponizing the laws that govern galaxies. Pierce's calm voice echoed across the chamber. We never built the largest fleet. We built the most binding contracts. Across human-controlled systems, holopads flickered to life. Automatic defense clauses triggered simultaneously. Fleet access denied. Planetary resources immobilized. Trade embargoes enforced. Imperial admirals, confident in overwhelming firepower, found their fleets stranded mid-engines deactivated by clauses, anticipating this exact moment. Some written decades ago, some centuries. Every attempted strike was met with glowing holographic warnings. Unauthorized movement detected. Civilian trade network protection engaged. Penalties enforced immediately. The Empire's pride bristled. No species had ever been defeated by documents. Yet here they were powerless before human foresight. Even the most decorated admirals whispered, "We are trapped." By law, Pierce allowed a brief pause, letting the weight of the moment sink in. He knew the Empire's hubris would compound their fear, making every subsequent legal maneuver more terrifying. HFY slammed a clawed hand against a podium. This is absurd. Words cannot bind armies. Pierce's eyes glinted. Words, when structured correctly, are sharper than any blade. They corner you without bloodshed. They force decisions you cannot escape. Across the galaxy, Imperial commanders received real-time notifications. Contracts they ignored automatically activated fleet lockouts, planetary quarantines, and ally embargoes. Every attempted aggressive maneuver was blocked by legal mechanisms humans had anticipated decades ago. Even rogue officers attempting to circumvent the law were neutralized instantly by the same legal network they ignored. The psychological impact was immediate. High-ranking officers argued in panic. Fleets froze mid-trade routes stopped. Mercenary armies abandoned contracts in confusion. Holoclauses floated like spectral guardians, red lines glowing ominously for every violation. Humans had transformed bureaucracy into a weapon. The Empire realized they were outmaneuvered without a single shot fired. Pierce smirked faintly over the holopad. You call this war, I call it paperwork. Analysts monitored Imperial reactions in real time. Every contingency was anticipated. Every legal trap had a countermeasure already prepared. Fleet commanders hesitated as holographic contracts projected before them, red lines blinking if ignored. Decisions became a puzzle of compliance versus aggression, with consequences guaranteed for errors. Imperial officers panicked. Every attack, every maneuver, triggered automatic sanctions, frozen accounts, denied supply lines, Withdrawal of allies. Pierce occasionally added wry commentary via holocom. Interesting strategy. Shall we call it fleet immobilization by Clause 1 to be very creative? The Empire's arrogance crumbled. Their armies, vast and technologically superior, were immobilized not by weapons, but by intellect, law, and foresight. Soldiers whispered nervously, as they realized their orders were invalid under interstellar law. The humans had converted bureaucracy into psychological warfare. The Empire attempted covert operations. Confident legality could be bypassed. Every attempt failed. Humans anticipated each contingency. Unsanctioned troop movements were blocked, subverted, or rerouted. Allies refused engagement due to treaty obligations. Pierce's voice overcomes. Remained calm. I advise you to read the fine print before your next maneuver. Every misstep costs more than lives. It costs legitimacy, allies, and resources. HFY realized the depth of the horror. Their fleets, powerful and numerous, were rendered impotent by documents written centuries ago, meticulously maintained by human intelligence. Imperial senators began whispering. They fight not with weapons, but with minds sharper than blades. The audience experiences intellectual suspense. HFY humans dominate not through strength but strategic mastery and preparation. Pierce allowed the Empire a minor victory in battle, only to enforce automatic economic sanctions and fleet seizures immediately afterward. Core planets disconnected, trade routes froze, mercenary armies abandoned contracts, no weapons fired, no cities bombarded. Humanity won without launching a single projectile. Empress Shakor screamed at holodocuments, realizing her fleets obeyed laws humans had anticipated decades prior, not her commands. Psychological impact, empire pride, legitimacy, and alliances collapsed. Civil unrest erupted on sub-Empire worlds, all triggered by automatic clauses embedded in treaties. Humans observed quietly, not gloating, not malicious, simply enforcing logic and foresight. Pierce, Hale, and Volkov debriefed. Victory without bloodshed is more terrifying than annihilation, Pierce said. You know you were defeated, but not by force. Imperial officers faced existential moral dilemmas. Pride, honor, survival all stripped away by intellect, law, and preparation. The galaxy learned humans could win wars without firing a shot, relying solely on intelligence, foresight, and legal mastery. This sequence heightens suspense and HFY pride, reinforcing humanity's unique psychological and strategic capabilities. Camera pans over idle Imperial fleets. Engines deactivated mid-orbit close-ups of officers reading glowing clauses. Trembling hands. Pierce's calm demeanor contrasts with chaos, highlighting human superiority. Holographic contracts activate across multiple star systems. Humans. Wry annotations appear subtly, invisible to enemized planets. Freeze trade. Fleets are immobilized. Diplomats argue allies abandon Imperial worlds. Adding tension and realism. Visuals emphasize HFY intelligence, restraint, and calculated dominance, creating cinematic appeal for YouTube narration. The Empire sued for peace, not due to fleets or weapons, but because economy, alliances, and command structures had been dismantled legally. Pierce folded holopads calmly. Congratulations. You've learned the hard way. Read the fine print. Humanity never fired the final shot. Their power lay in preparation, precision, and intellect. Empress Shakor, humbled, understood the true cost of underestimating humans. Intelligence over strength, law over brute force, patience, and foresight over impulsive pride. The galaxy would remember. Humans never strike first, but when prepared, no species can match their strategy. Camera pans. Human command centers. Officers calm. Holographic clauses glowing. Idle Imperial fleets frozen mid. Commanders panicking. Close-ups of diplomats arguing. Trade routes frozen. Allies abandoning Empire. Pierce and team observe quietly. Subtle smirks fade out with calm narration. Humans win without firing a shot, proving intellect and law can conquer might. The Grand Council of the Zel Dominion had summoned every warlord, tactician, and bureaucrat to witness the formal declaration of war against humanity. The chamber floated in orbit around a shattered moon, its glass walls revealing the black void dotted with stars. Imperial banners, black and crimson, hung like ominous warnings, each symbol a memory of worlds the Empire had conquered or annihilated. The human and Elena Ruiz stepped forward, calm, silent, not a trace of fear. Supreme War Master of the Empire extended multiple appendages in mock courtesy. Humanity, you stand before 1,000 fleets and countless systems. Do you truly intend to resist? Ruiz smiled faintly, folding a thin datapad. Resist? No. I'm hoping you won't. Silence fell. The Empire expected arrogance. They expected fear. They expected humans to beg. Instead, she laughed. Not hysterically. Not nervously. Just softly, calculated. Her laugh echoed across the chamber, a single, resonant note of confidence. You see, war is not a game to us. It is a tragedy. We hope you understand the weight of what you have chosen, the council murmured. Ixvar's mandibles clicked with irritation. Your species is naive. You have rules, codes, mercy. That is weakness. Ruiz's eyes hardened. Mercy is not weakness. It is power. And that is what terrifies you. The camera pans across the chamber. Imperial dignitaries, tense. Human observers, silent but resolute. Outside the glass walls, human fleets orbit distant colonies, invisible, awaiting orders that will never destroy, unless necessary. Emotional hook. The audience immediately grasps that humans fight differently. Their strength is in self-restraint, strategic mercy, and moral foresight. Alina Ruiz walked through the holographic archive of human history, projected in the chamber. Worlds destroyed, conflicts survived, plagues endured. Every victory was tempered with reflection. Humanity had learned the cost of becoming monsters. Look at this, she said, gesturing toward images of past wars. Entire continents scorched by past civilizations. Monuments of suffering. Memorials for those killed. Even enemies. This is why we fight differently. We carry the weight of our worst mistakes. Once, we were monsters. We swore, never again. Ixvar hissed. Sentiment will not save you. The galaxy respects only force. Ruiz's expression didn't change. Force. We wield it. But we also know when not to. Mercy. Discipline. The choice to stop. That is what makes us dangerous. You will see it soon. In the chamber, holographic images of human memorials for fallen enemy soldiers scrolled across the walls. Each name glowing softly. An eternal reminder. Humanity remembered. Even its foes. The Empire's officers murmured among themselves. Confusion, curiosity, dread. The subtle power of restraint over brutality had never been demonstrated so directly. Var banged the council gavel. We have decided. Humanity will be conquered, or erased. Their fleets will fall. Their planets will burn. Alina Ruiz listened silently, the weight of centuries of history in her gaze. She activated the human fleet communication network. Orders were precise, not brutal, not annihilating, strategic, defensive, adaptive. Lieutenant Anya Volkov, commander of humanity's most secretive fleet, relayed instructions. Maintain orbital positions. Avoid civilian casualties. Engage only if provoked. Observe. Report. The Empire misread the silence as indecision. They underestimated the humans' ability to turn restraint into strategy. Ruiz's inner monologue revealed the human calculus. Every action is measured. Every potential death weighed. The Empire believes fear is power. They do not realize patience and morality can terrify more. Outside, human fleets glimmered silently. Invisible. Waiting. Watching. Prepared to strike but not to destroy. Recklessly. Suspense builds. Audience understands humans could retaliate, but their restraint creates psychological tension. The Empire dispatched a fleet to Lyra Prime, expecting resistance. Instead, they found orbiting human ships. Engines powered, but weapons idle. Ixvar snarled. Why do they not fire? Ruiz responded via comms, voice calm. Because there is no reason yet. You've provoked no immediate threat to life. We will defend, but we will not kill without necessity. The Imperial Admiral, frustrated, ordered orbital bombardment. The humans countered not with aggression, but with containment protocols. Forcing Imperial ships into carefully controlled zones, neutralizing tactical advantage without firing. Volkov reported, all Imperial vessels restricted, evacuation corridors open, no civilian casualties detected. We are in control. Ixvar's rage grew. This is impossible. They mock us. Ruiz's inner monologue reflected centuries of ethical strategy. Power is measured not by destruction, but by the control to stop it. This scene establishes the moral core of humanity as terrifyingly effective. The Empire's pride will lead to mistakes. The audience feels suspense, and the slow burn tension rises. Over the next weeks, Imperial forces made repeated assaults. Human fleets responded with precise containment, blockade, and maneuvering, avoiding casualties unless unavoidable. Alina Ruiz addressed Ixvar directly. You see our fleets, our planets, untouched. You expected slaughter. We give you mercy. That is our choice. And that is your fear. The camera pans. Imperial soldiers retreat from orbital zones they cannot occupy. Civilians on contested planets remain unharmed. Ruiz's inner monologue. True power lies not in domination, but in choosing when to end suffering. A species that controls itself terrifies those who cannot. Empire generals began to doubt orders. Pride, brutality, and arrogance were no longer assets, they were liabilities. Every human restraint forced the Imperial officers to question themselves. Subtle humor underlines tension. Ruiz occasionally sends a message to HFY. We could annihilate your fleet. But you've been so polite. We'll wait. The Empire's morale crumbles. Audience tension peaks. HFY humans demonstrate calculated, terrifying restraint. HFY, desperate, attacks human fleets with overwhelming force. But humans adapt rapidly, predicting maneuvers, containing attacks, neutralizing threats efficiently. Finally, human countermeasures force Imperial fleet retreats. No civilian deaths. Minimal casualties on both sides. Elena Ruiz activates the final measure. Orbital blockade zones, automated precision strikes, and defensive networks, but all designed to stop Imperial advances, not exterminate. HFY screams, realizing humans could have destroyed the Empire. They chose not to. Mercy, not destruction, was the ultimate weapon. Volkov reports. Imperial command structure destabilized. Fleet cohesion collapsing. No human lives lost unnecessarily. The audience feels awe, restraint as ultimate HFY power. HFY kneels before Ruiz in holographic communication. Your species. This mercy, it is terrifying. Ruiz responds. We remember what it is like to be monsters. We choose not to be. That is what makes us strong. And that is your lesson? Imperial officers face moral collapse. Their pride shattered. Armies unable to advance. Allies questioning loyalty. Humanity's calm, controlled response has dismantled the Empire psychologically, without slaughter. Audience experiences emotional payoff. HFY humans are morally superior and strategically unbeatable, yet humane. Camera pans human fleets orbiting planets. Weapons powered but idle Imperial fleets retreat. Commanders panicking close-ups. Human officers coordinating precise maneuvers. Holographic displays glowing planetary civilians safe. Cities untouched. Ruiz and Volkov observing from command center. Calm, resolute Imperial soldiers witnessing restraint. Morale broken. Fade 2 stars. Memorial holograms projecting names of both human and enemy dead, symbolizing remembrance. Cinematic visualization reinforces HFY themes: restraint, intelligence, moral clarity, and psychological supremacy. The Empire sued for peace, not because humans killed, but because their control, restraint, and strategic intelligence were inescapable. Elena Ruiz addressed the Galactic Council. We fight to survive, but we never forget. Once, we became monsters. We swore never again. That choice, mercy, control, and foresight is humanity's greatest weapon. Learn it, respect it, fear it. HFY and remaining Imperial forces retreat, humbled, demoralized, broken. Civilization remains intact. The galaxy witnesses a species whose restraint terrifies more than destruction. The moral is clear. Controlled mercy is stronger than unrestrained aggression. Camera pans over human fleets fading into deep space. Silent, disciplined Imperial fleets scattered, retreating. Broken Moralek close-ups of human officers quietly observing enemy movements. Calm, confident memorial holograms glowing across worlds, recording all fallen, even enemies fade to black. Narration emphasizes HFY theme: humanity does not seek war. It only prepares, restrains, and remembers. And that is why it survives. A flickering holoscreen displayed the morning's news across the Grand Senate chamber. Imperial dignitaries paused mid-step. The headline read, Empire declares war. Humanity updates memorials. The room froze, not with fear, confusion. Humanity did not tremble, did not panic. They merely prepared. Samuel read, humanity's aging envoy, leaned forward, wrinkles creasing his forehead, eyes heavy with centuries of grief and experience. He had buried more worlds than he could count. Yet here he stood, calm. The Empire expected panic, chaos, or bravado. Instead, he calmly updated memorials, meticulously calculating the cost of lives that would soon be lost. Why did they update memorials before battle? Whispered an Imperial aide. Reads inner monologue. Because pretending there will be no death is the first lie of war. Humanity honors what is lost even before it is gone. and that terrifies them. The headline was more than words, it was a statement of human philosophy. Death is inevitable, but memory is power. And before the first shot, the Empire already understood that humanity had planned for every outcome, every casualty, every moral consequence. The camera pans. Read activating holographic memorials, names of humans, and even alien lives who might perish in coming battles, projected into the void of space. Each name glowing softly, a reminder of consequences. The Empire had declared war. Humanity had already begun to honor what would be lost. Inside humanity's orbital command center, a network of archivists, historians, and AI systems coordinated the updates. Every civilian on Sorath 4 will have their name linked to a memorial node. Reed instructed. His voice was calm but carried decades of authority. Military personnel updates are synchronized with projected theaters of conflict. Enemy combatants also included. Every life matters, even theirs. We will not forget. Princess Velshai, observing from the Imperial delegation, whispered, "Why would a species honor enemies before a battle? Madness. Weakness." Reed's response, under his breath, revealed humanity's ethos. Weakness is ignoring the consequences. Strength is remembering before acting. The human memorial network wasn't just a record, it was a psychological weapon. The Empire saw a civilization meticulously prepared to mourn the cost of war. They did not see fleets bristling with weapons. Yet every admiral knew Reed's calm was more dangerous than fury. The system mapped casualties before strikes occurred, creating simulations of grief, calculation of losses, and projections of survival rates. Humanity's preparation was meticulous, combining ethics, psychology, and strategic foresight. Velshai shivered. They anticipate everything, even death itself. The Empire mobilized a fleet to the Tarsi sector, anticipating swift conquest. Reed activated communication arrays. Instead of firing weapons, human envoys broadcast memorial holograms across Imperial channels. Planets, stars, ships, and even the names of Imperial soldiers likely to fall. You will see your names remembered if you choose conflict. Choose wisely. Imperial officers froze. Some scoffed. Others felt unease. No human had threatened them. No weapons fired. Yet the message was unmistakable. Humanity was aware, prepared, and morally calculating every outcome. Inside Reed's mind, death is inevitable, but anticipation, respect, and understanding of its cost creates control, and control terrifies those who rely on brute force. Princess Velshai, observing from the balcony, watched holographic names flicker across the void. Humans, aliens, enemy combatants. Her stomach twisted. How can a species fight if they already honor the dead before the fight begins? Reed's calm voice responded to the Empire's demands. We fight to survive, but we remember. That is the difference between us and you. The first Imperial skirmishes began, not with guns, not with bombardment, but with hesitation. Human strategy leveraged morality and psychological forethought, breaking the enemy before battle could begin. Imperial warships approached Sorath 4. Their captains expected compliance, resistance, or panic. Instead, human orbital defense systems activated non-lethal containment grids, forcing Imperial vessels into precise positions. Civilian zones were cordoned off. No unnecessary death. Salty. Commander Anya Folkofes. Voice echoed in Reed's. Kamare. Imperial fleet contained. Minimal casualties. Civilian zones secure. Enemy morale. Engagement controlled. Ixvar's mandibles clicked in frustration. Why are they not attacking? Reed's inner monologue. Every action is measured. Every consequence weighed. A species that calculates morality as rigorously as war is. Terrifying. Imperial captains hesitated. Orders conflicting. Pride clashing with fear. Humanity had fought entirely on the psychological plane, controlling the battlefield without firing lethal shots. The audience feels suspense. Humans are deadly, but lethal action is not required to dominate. Every restraint magnifies their strategic control. As battles raged, human memorials updated in real names of potential casualties, projections of loss, and historical comparisons scrolled across holographic nodes. Reed addressed his fleet. Remember, we fight to survive, not to exterminate. Honor the fallen, even before battle ends. Every life remembered is a victory over chaos. Imperial forces experienced growing unease. Civilians remained unharmed. Enemy combatants saw their names in glowing memorials. Humans had weaponized forethought and remembrance, creating a sense of inescapable judgment. Princess Velshai whispered, horrified. They don't just fight. They force you to see the cost of war before you strike. The Empire's strategy faltered. Fleets hesitated. Pride faltered. Humans held the upper hand psychologically, before any physical confrontation could reach climax. The first Imperial assaults against Sarath IV ended in confusion, not destruction. Imperial admirals scowled at their holoscreens. Ships that should have advanced were blocked by invisible containment grids, civilian zones enforced, escape routes open. The humans refused to play by the Empire's rules. And that became the first weapon. Samuel Reed stood before the observation window of the Orbital Command Center. Fingers steepled. They will realize soon that war is more than weaponry, he muttered. Voice calm but laden with decades of experience. LT Commander. Anya Volkov's voice cut through. Imperial fleet cohesion is faltering. Captains hesitate. Orders conflict. Casualties minimal. Outside, the Empire's flagship, a colossal dreadnought, drifted in indecision. Its captain watched his own crew's hesitation, noting every movement. Every time they considered a strike, human forces anticipated it, contained it, and neutralized the threat without firing lethal shots. Reed's inner monologue. They believe war is measured in destruction. We measure it in foresight, control, and memory. The first death may not have occurred yet, but fear has already spread through their ranks. Imperial generals whispered among themselves. Pride battled uncertainty. They had not yet fired a full barrage, yet their morale crumbled. Human memorials updated in real time. Every Imperial officer could see projections of what would happen if they persisted in attacks. Names of potential casualties: soldiers, civilians. Even Alice scrolled across holographic displays, glowing softly but inescapably. Princess Velshai leaned over her console. They weaponized remembrance. They threaten us with morality. Samuel Reed activated the Tomorrow's Obituary Protocol. Every Imperial fleet received a broadcast, a visual simulation of human memorials expanding across the sector. The names of those likely to fall if the Empire advanced. We do not kill recklessly, Reed said, but we will defend, and when the time comes, every life we take will be calculated, measured, and unavoidable. We fight knowing loss will occur, but we remember, always. Imperial soldiers saw the names of comrades flicker across the stars. Officers froze. The subtle terror of inevitable remembrance rippled across the fleet. Velshai whispered, "They do not just threaten, they remind you of the consequences before you act." That is horrifying. The Empire had underestimated humanity's ability to convert morality and remembrance into strategic dominance. Imperial warships finally attempted an aggressive maneuver, expecting a decisive blow. Humanity allowed them to advance, but only into carefully prepared containment grids and maneuver zones. Civilians were evacuated or shielded. Enemy ships were corralled, neutralized, or disabled without unnecessary casualties. LT Commander Volkov reported. Engagement controlled. No civilian casualties. Imperial ships contained. Fleet coordination intact. Enemy morale destabilized. Reed watched the simulation feed. Each Imperial strike resulted in their own suffering. Ships trapped, crews confused, command hierarchy collapsing. Humans did not seek destruction. They imposed calculated consequence. The camera pans over the battle. Bright blue energy grids containing massive dreadnoughts. Human ships ghosting around enemy vessels like chess pieces. Civilians glowing in protected zones. Imperial soldiers realizing their pride had been weaponized against them. Reed's inner monologue. They sought fear. We gave them foresight. They sought power. We gave them consequence. This is the difference between brute force and intelligence, between tyranny and humanity. Weeks passed. Imperial assaults continued, but each human response emphasized precision, restraint, and ethical calculation. Civilians remained unharmed. Enemy soldiers were neutralized only when unavoidable. Every human fleet commander operated under rules of engagement designed to preserve life. While ensuring strategic dominance, Ixfar, desperate, convened his top generals. They have the upper hand without striking. Their restraint is stronger than our fleet. Reed monitored the Imperial Council through secure channels. His inner monologue. They are unraveling under morality. They cannot handle a species that calculates honor and consequence as rigorously as firepower. Human memorials updated continually. Names of enemy soldiers who survived the first strikes glowed, honoring them while simultaneously reminding them of what could befall them if they continued aggression. Princess Velshai murmured, "They have turned empathy into a weapon, and it is far deadlier than any bomb." Imperial fleets hesitated. Command structures faltered. The human ability to fight with restraint and no cruelty Always calculation produced psychological devastation across the Empire. HFY ordered a massive fleet assault, hoping overwhelming force would break humanity. Humans responded with perfectly coordinated countermeasures. Containment zones, predictive maneuvers, and defensive systems funneled Imperial ships into positions of disadvantage. Still, human casualties were minimized. Still, civilian zones remained untouched. LT. Commander Volkov's voice rang out. Imperial fleets fully contained. Engagement controlled. Enemy morale collapsing. No unnecessary casualties incurred. Reed's inner monologue reflected centuries of strategy. This is not rage. This is calculated fury. We have the power to destroy, yet we choose the moment, the measure, the limit. That choice terrifies them more than annihilation ever could. Imperial admirals panicked. Pride crumbled. Fleets scattered. HFY's scream echoed through communication channels. They could have destroyed us, and they chose not to. The camera pans over the human command center, calm officers, precise holographic grids, memorials scrolling across space, symbols of morality and foresight overpowering brute force. Audience sees the climax. Humanity achieves complete tactical victory without crossing ethical lines, fully exemplifying HFY supremacy. HFY summoned the remaining Imperial Council. Your species. Your restraint. It is terrifying. Reed's response was measured. We fight to survive, but we never forget. We remember the cost of war, every life lost, every consequence borne. That memory is our strength. That is the lesson you must learn.